What's up, everyone? On today's episode, we're actually releasing a new quote-unquote program, and it's called the CGN Badass Book Club. And we're talking to you all through it, how to join it, and what it's going to entail. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Contractor Growth Network, and I am still Logan.
I'm still Alex.
And welcome to 2020. Now, 2020 is a pretty big year because it's a new decade, new year, obviously. And what we want to do is we're starting a new program. And it's called the CGN, Contractor Growth Network, Badass Book Club. And the reason that we're starting this is because everybody, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you're in the mindset you want to grow, whether it's for business or for personal or whatever you want to grow in some sense. And you're listening to this because the idea of this podcast is to help you grow. Well, I see it all the time where it's, contractors, business owners, a lot of people who are in this world, and they go, what books are you reading right now? What podcasts are you reading right now? And I think, for you, Alex, are you a big reader naturally?
No, I haven't. I don't think I've read a book since 6th grade summer.
And what book was that?
As Ever Gordy, but I did read it cover to cover. I was really into it. It was like a fictional story.
Was it like for pleasure or is it for school?
I had to read it for school, but normally you'd wait till the last 2 weeks of summer to do it. I actually read that the first 2 weeks of summer.
I remember did you have to do a summer math packet back in the day? We did those, and I remember one year I did it, and it was for statistics class in high school, and all my friends the night before were like, "Hey, we haven't done it. Logan, can we just come over and copy?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine."
Yeah.
And I didn't have time to let them copy, so I just made a couple photocopies and just said, just take them and just do what you got to do with them.
Yeah.
And one of my buddies actually crossed my name out on the photocopy and put his name on it and turned it in. And the teacher, the third day of class, was like, "All right, guys, I know everybody copied off each other." And then he holds up my buddies and he goes, "Whoever did this, you're getting a 0 on this." And and everybody, of course, in the class is laughing. And my buddy, I didn't know that was mine. And I was like, "Damn, I did that though." I wonder if nobody would have turned that in.
No.
And my buddy looks at me, and I look at him, and he just mouths, "I'm so sorry." I ended up getting a C that quarter because it was back in high school.
Yeah.
Because he did that. But
that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
I was like, "Are you what the?"
Yeah.
Oh my God. Literally just because it didn't, and this is of course, when you photocopy this stuff, it's not exact, all the words and the stuff on the page is shifted, so it's all at a 5-degree angle to the right.
Yeah.
So
and he just crossed it out.
He just literally just crossed it out.
She's not gonna notice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh God, he was so dumb.
Would you spell your name wrong?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But yeah. So with all the reading stuff, if you're in this listening to this podcast, you're looking for these books, you're looking for this stuff, and I see it all the time where contractors go, "What books are you reading?" And everybody comments the same 5 or 6 books and this and that, and those are fantastic books. However, what the big problem is somebody says, "Oh, who's read Profit First for Contractors?" And then 8 people chime in and they say, "Who's doing it?" And 5 of those people go, "I'm actually doing it." And then the conversation ends.
Yeah.
And there's no follow-up on it. And this is kind of why people actually have book clubs in general, where it's generally a bunch of women. They read a book, and every month they sit down and they talk about it. And the idea of talking about it helps you it's almost like you're teaching it to other people, and that's actually shows that you understand what is happening. So to provide an outlet for people to then read these books and then actually be able to talk about them in depth, ask other people, what are you doing with this book? What are you confused about? Things like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea behind this quote unquote online book club.
Yeah. I think it's you've seen Shark Tank before, right?
Yeah.
I think it's those people really value their opinion because they're super successful in it. And for this group, I think especially with, males, it's to be a book club, it just kind of seems like, I'm not going to read a book. But with this, it's an online book club. You can do it on Audible, and we're super into podcasting. I think men are more into podcasting because you can do it when you're working. It's a multitasking tool, and I think it's a perfect idea to grow and be able to improve your business, improve your mindset, whatever you're looking to improve on, and still be able to vast your knowledge.
And it's so funny because when I first not started business, but 5 years ago, when I first started doing all the marketing stuff, I was embarrassed that my dad hired Tom Reber for the marketing because I didn't want to tell people that, I have a business coach to help me out.
Yeah.
And yeah, but like now it's like I'm all for it. Like I
Yeah.
tell everybody, like, yeah, I got business coach, I got therapy. Like, you know, you put all your out there.
Yeah.
But in the world of like book reading and stuff, like guys just don't do that. And just to be clear, this is not just a men's only group,
No.
but it's also just like like people who listen to this podcast, like statistically, like it's predominantly men.
Yeah.
So
And men are more stubborn, so you kind of have to convince them a little more to do this stuff.
exactly. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to facilitate an environment where we can read these books. They're all self-help, self-empowerment, business-minded books to get you to that next level, and then actually talk about it. And we'll talk about it from our perspective because everybody comes to the table with something different. That's why diversity in business is like so important. Where like we used to be at Full Sail, we used to just be a bunch of white guys, which is like we all kind of like we kind of come from a lot of the same environments. So it's like, how could we ever think outside the box when our box is the exact same thing?
Yeah.
And then you bring in Laura, and her parents are, you know, they're from Laos, and she comes from like they're like first generation, and Laura's
Yeah.
like first generation. I mean, her perspective is way different than what I came from, so it's good to have like outside. So that same with this book club is like, here's the concept, here's the book that we're reading, how are you guys applying it? And if you have enough people that are like talking about this is what's working, this is what's not working, things like that, that is going to be like your way to think outside the box,
Yeah.
but do it with a community.
Yeah, especially like different types of contractors too. Like you never know, like a remodeler could get an idea from a painter just from what he's seen.
Yeah.
It's like you never know that until you actually like communicate. And with the online world, it's like the book club can be such a bigger thing because you don't have to necessarily be in that circle at, you know, wine night at the girls' houses. You know? So
Yeah, and that's like one thing that we do a lot of is if I see something that works, like, you know, I grew up in the pawn world. If I see something that works in the pawn world, or like, for example, pawn world, you got two sides of pawns. You got construction and you've got maintenance. Construction is usually just like going into somebody's house and remodeling their kitchen.
Yeah.
It's more of a one-time thing, and you're generally always in acquisition mode.
Yeah.
But on the maintenance side of things, you have maintenance contracts, which creates recurring revenue, aka cash flow. You get monthly, you get paid throughout the year, and usually during like the winter months when most other pawn guys are doing nothing and they're just sitting there trying to like live off what they've made so far that year. You know, like a lot of the pawn people that we work with, they send out contracts for this upcoming maintenance season. So they're getting paid in January, February, March, when most everybody else is sitting there trying to figure out how much, you know, how to ration their money. These guys have like recurring revenue always coming in. So there's always money coming in. And if we can take that and somehow apply that to the world of remodeling, which a lot of remodelers do, in the sense that a lot of people have like property management, or they sell service contracts or this and that. So again, it's just recurring revenue. But a lot of them, like a lot of remodelers like don't know or like don't think about that kind of stuff just because like you haven't been exposed to it. And I would have never thought that same thing, except for the fact that I've been, you know, I was raised in a contracting household where there was recurring revenue. So it's like, how do I take that model and apply it to other businesses we work with? And that's the same thing with this book club, where it's like straight up, you know, like how do you take what one person's doing and apply it to somebody else? Because diversity, again, is, I don't want to say the spice of life because that's variety, but it's no different.
Yeah, well, it's like what you don't know can't hurt you, but it's like,
Exactly.
how do you grow if you don't like have somebody else teach you these things, you know?
Exactly.
So it's like you can't be that stubborn to it.
Exactly. So the way that the book club is going to work is as follows. So it's going to be done, when we say online, it's going to be done using a Facebook group. Name of the Facebook group is going to be CGN, so Contractor Growth Network, Badass Book Club. CGN, Badass Book Club. And here is how it's all going to operate, is we are going to pick one book per month. So between the beginning of the month and the end of the month, you have to read that book. Now, the criteria for these books are every book that we're going to pick, they're going to be on Audible, meaning when you're driving around in your truck or your car or whatever, you can listen to these books. All right? We're not forcing you to sit down and read, because I read that Tools of Titans book that's behind me, and that was probably the first book that I've read in 15 years, I would say.
Yeah.
Because actually, no, I lie. I read two books this year, actually. I read that one, and then I read
They ask you answer?
No, so I've read that one before, but I actually listened to Audible on that one. The Customer Service Revolution one, because that hadn't even been released yet.
Oh, nice.
So I read both of those books, but I'm just way better at like listening to stuff. So and I think like most people are, and from a time perspective, like you can do this on the go. Like I always listen to podcasts or books in the morning when I'm getting ready, like I'm showering, getting breakfast. I do that on my drive in. I'm listening. So there's a solid like half an hour, 45 minutes every day that I have to listen to this stuff before I get into work.
There's a stat that I think BBC did a study where they gave two sets of people a podcast to listen to, like a 30-minute podcast, and they told half the people to like do something else while they're listening to the podcast, and then they told half the people don't do anything but just listen. And the people that actually did something while they were listening to it retained like 50% more of the information than people that were just sitting there doing nothing. Yeah, because their mind started to wander and they started not really like listening to it. So like I think Audible and podcasting, it's like, you might be doing something else, but you're actually going to retain some of the more of the information.
That's so funny because like your brain can't naturally multitask.
Yeah.
Like we all say like we're good at multitasking, but like nobody actually can.
Yeah.
Like when you're like walking and texting, you're not thinking about walking, you're thinking about texting, and then like vice versa. So it's funny that like that happened that way. But like the way that I look at it is like with any program you join, you're going to join a program, you're only going to do 10% of whatever they say. So instead of doing 10% of a little bit, let's just pick a book a month. That's 12 books, and that's 10% more of 12 different books that you're going to start to do or at least implement.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a monthly book, and then on the first of the next month, so let's say, today, we're going to talk about the book that we're choosing today. Between now and February 1, 2020, you have to read the book. You have to listen to this book from cover to cover all the way through. Now, on the first, when you're in this Facebook group, what we're going to do is we're going to put out a Facebook post that says, comment below with the word yes that you read this book. And if you comment yes, then you get to stay in the group. If you do not comment, then we kick you out of the group. So we only want people in this Facebook group that are going to be listening and actually doing this work. So you have between the 1st and the 5th of that month to comment yes. So we give you 5-day grace period to comment yes. And if after the 5th you haven't commented yes, we're kicking you out. And then from the whole month of February, it's our time to talk about this book. What are you guys doing? What are you implementing? We'll put out like probing questions and things like that. And you don't have to participate at all. If you want to be a fly on the wall, like that's totally cool. Like everybody learns and interacts differently.
Yeah.
But what I want is I want to make sure you're at least reading the book, because like I had a good talk with Jared Shaw, who was in here. He painted the other day. He painted all of our stuff, and I was talking to him about like, he's like, I need to get better at knowing my numbers. I got to know my numbers. And I was like, even if you don't like sit down and do all the math, like at least start to like listen to stuff about knowing your numbers, because even if you don't do anything about it, at least you're like learning more about it and getting more comfortable with it. So when you do finally go and learn your numbers, quote unquote, it's going to be that much easier because you're going to be like more in that mindset.
Yeah. I mean, you might not understand like maybe what like Adine in our last podcast was talking about, but at least when you want to sit down with a CPA, you have questions that you can ask instead of just walking in there with nothing.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. Where it's you're not executing, so you're not quite at step 1, but you're right on like the 2-yard line of step 1.
Like admittal or whatever the first one is. Like you admit there's like a problem or whatever. Yeah.
Is that like stages of grief?
I think it's like I thought it was just the AA meetings. Like you have to admit that you have a problem first before you actually like act on it.
Yeah, because I was like stages of grief. I was like, I think like admitting it's like step 8.
It's the last one. Yeah. I was thinking alcohol's anonymous.
Yeah. I think the first one's like denial. So the idea is just like at least like get into it, like read. So you have from the time that this podcast releases, which I think is January 6, 2020, between then and February 1. You have to read the book. All right. And then February 1 to February 5, you have to comment on that post saying, yes, I have read it. If you have not commented on it, then you're out. If you have commented on it saying, yes, I've read it, then you're in, and let's talk about it. You don't have to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it in the very least.
Okay. Yeah.
And then during that month of February, we already have another book that we're talking about or that we're reading. So there's always going to be one book that we're reading, and then we're talking about the previous month's book in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
And if you go through a book and you get halfway through it and you go, man, this book sucks, then you don't have to finish it. You're just going to be out of the group discussion for the next month, but you can pick it back up. Like I get like shit happens, that kind of stuff. And this is all honor systems. So if you say, yep, I read the book because you just want to stay in the group, like it's up to you. It's on you. But the idea is to be able to like continue to like educate ourselves, read. I mean, 12 books in a year is nothing crazy. And if you think about like what all like the CEOs and them say, they're like, oh, I read a book a week. And it's like, how the fuck do you have
Yeah.
time to like
Yeah,
read a
time
book
to
a
do it.
week?
Yeah.
Like-
Very obtainable goal to read a book
Yeah.
a month. So maybe explain to them what happens when, say, I didn't read the book in February, but I'm going to read the book in March. How do I get back into the group?
So then what you're going to do at that point is we're going to kick you out.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read the book, next book, you just request to come back in.
Yeah.
So it's literally going to be like between the 1st and the 5th is like quote unquote open enrollment.
Mm-hmm. And we'll announce like the March book or the February book
Yeah.
in that 5-day grace period, so you know what to read
You know-
next.
yeah,
but-
you know exactly what you're doing. So you'll always have a month notice.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about on this podcast, which is the other side of it, is at the end of that month, in addition to talking about it in the Facebook group, we're also going to have a podcast where we talk about the book.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about what we learn, what we see with contractors, what they can do to apply it to their business and stuff like that, their personal life, all that kind of stuff. So you're going to hear it on the podcast. You're going to have it interactive in the Facebook group. You're going to have a little community of other, like, straight up, like just like people like taking action and trying to like implement this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're going for here. And the only price of admission for all this, because it's all free, is you got to actually read the book. So it's
Yeah.
going to cost you $16 on Audible, unless you want to buy the book or rent it from the library and do it. And then just join the Facebook group, CGN Badass Book Club, and that's kind of how the operations of this are all going to go.
Yeah, I think it's good accountability too. I was always that guy in school that didn't read the book, and having people like talk about it, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a really good book. I should have read it. So it stinks that if you want to, like you said, it's the honor system, but if you want to actually feel a part of it and actually feel like you can retain something, I recommend reading the book.
That's still a nightmare of mine where like I'll be back in high school.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like I'll be back in high school and I'll have to like write like, I don't know, some book report or something like that, and it's due tomorrow. And I'm like, shit, I haven't actually read this book. I got to figure out something. And if I don't write this book report, I don't pass the class, which means I don't pass high school, which means that my college degree is technically not valid.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because in reality, I didn't even need to go to elementary school to do what we're doing now.
No,
but that's still like I probably get that dream like once every 2 months where I'm like having to do some assignment where I had to have read a book and I haven't read it at all.
I have like younger kids like ask me about like going out of college, like how do I pick a college? And I go, honestly, if I applied myself better reading in high school, I would probably went to a better college. But I mean, I didn't think about it at the time because you look at it and GPA went down because I didn't read the books. So
Yeah, ever.
yeah.
And it's funny because now like I'm an avid like we're big on education here at Full Sail. I mean, you guys, and just so you guys know, like to put skin in the game, like everybody at Full Sail has to read these books. They don't have to read them. I'm sorry, they don't have to read them, but they all get $100 at the end of the month, including Alex, to actually read this book because the idea is to level everybody up so that way when both for obviously like working with clients, but also like in our personal lives, like that's the goal. It's just like because like when you read and you educate yourself, like you feel empowered.
Yep.
And you like take action and take control of your
Yeah.
and it's way easier to like live life like that versus not. And it's the same reason why like you always hear about somebody taking over like I don't think maybe it was Hitler, but like all these like world leaders that like try to like like oppress people.
Yeah,
the first thing they do is they like burn all the books. They like take control of the media, then they burn all the books because like education is straight up like power.
Yeah.
And I know it's like cheesy, like the readers are leaders and stuff like that, but like
It's true.
It is true.
It's I also like it's I don't mind taking on this new challenge to read more books because it's embarrassing to like I know like a week ago I think actually we had a post that was about our top 5 books and I hadn't read a book since I was 12, so it's like that's embarrassing to say because I'm 24. So it's like I gotta start reading more, even if it's like an Audible. And it's so easy nowadays to like read a book because you don't actually have to read it; you can listen to it. So.
Yeah, and it's nice because what everybody does is like when I go out and like I'll talk to people, and it's becoming more and more common now to like listen to podcasts and stuff. But the books still aren't quite there yet.
No.
So when people are like, we're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm actually like I just finished this book on this, and it's like shocks people. Like, oh you read books? I'm like, well, I like listen to Audible, but like I'm big on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you never hear somebody go, oh, that's neat. They always go like I need to start to do that.
Yeah.
I need to start, but they never do.
It's like last year I guess I should say I took like some online courses like the Graham Stephan course, Harmon Brothers course to like better writing ads and all that stuff. And it's like I loved taking the course because it was like learning, and it was like, wow, this is really cool. So it's almost like this would be like being able to do a course again, and it's like
Exactly.
nice. Yeah.
Once a month.
Yeah.
Yep.
Easy.
So let's talk about some of the books that we're going to be doing. So we're going to start off with, obviously we're a marketing company. marketing and growth companies. So a lot of these are going to be business-minded books. They're going to be marketing, sales, operations, things like that. And then once we kind of go through those, we're going to sprinkle in some probably more on like, self-empowerment, self-improvement ones that are not directly related to business. But as we all know, you listen to this kind of stuff and then like you end up like applying it to your personal life and your marriage gets better and your relationships with your friends and family get better. So like you're learning it quote unquote for business, but in reality, like you end up applying it to like the rest of your life and like the rest of your life gets that much better. So we'll sprinkle a couple of those in that are like understanding like who you are as a person and like, like we could even read like the 5 love languages, which is like the 5 things that you should be doing like with your significant other to like have a better relationship. But like those are 100% things that, even though it sounds like, it's all personal stuff. Like if you know that one of your employees is really big into like words of affirmation, aka compliments.
Yeah.
Like that person, it's huge.
Yeah.
Versus like somebody else. Well, like we have clients that love gifts. We have clients that don't give a shit about gifts. And if we can figure out which ones love the gifts, then we could give them twice as many gifts. And those that don't care about gifts at all, don't give them any. And it ends up to like one of them doesn't. They're both just as happy.
Yeah.
So that's like with like a book like that where you're like, why the would we read this book? But that's why.
That's like my dad just hired a new employee, and everybody trains different, and he's had to go through that whole transition of having to train everybody different ways. So this guy very coddled, very like his wife does everything for him. So by understanding that and being able to like adapt to like his learning style, he knew he had to baby him a little bit more than another guy. He could say just go and do it and learn by yourself. So and reading that, and he read the 5 Love Languages book. Yeah. And I was like, how'd that help you with like employees? And he goes, it just made me realize that this guy's like, he needs more like assurance that he's doing a good job about it. And he needs this, not just like, go out and do it yourself. You know what I mean? So.
And who does that sound like? It's millennials.
Yes.
Millennials, we want we want you to tell us like, hey, you're doing a good job. You don't have to pay us as much money. You just tell us that we're doing a good job. And like, that is worth its weight in gold. And that's like what that book would teach you. But if I just tell you on this podcast, hey, we're going to read the 5 love languages together, you're like, it's probably time to switch podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can always, like every book that we're going to do, we're going to be able to apply it to both business and personal.
Yeah. Also helps with like small talk too. People are like, I read this book, and it's just like, and like talking to like a client or somebody else that, like you said before, very impressive. Like you read books and like, oh, I read the 5 love language books and it really helped me in business. And they go, huh. It's mixing it up. It'll be great. It'll be fun.
Yeah, good. And then let's talk about the book that we're going to be reading next. It's called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. So have you watched the Simon Sinek, like his TED Talk?
No.
Okay. So Simon Sinek, he's got like his YouTube TED Talk has got to be like one of the top like YouTube videos of all time. Oh yeah. And the idea is everybody starts with like the product that they sell. Right, they talk about, he does it like a bullseye, where like in the very middle circle, it's like got 3 rings. The very middle one, it says why. The next ring out is how, and the last ring is what. And he says most companies, they sell or they do everything. They go what first, how, and then why. And usually, what that means is what are they selling? How do they do it? And why are they doing it? Versus flipping it around, saying, first off, why are you doing what you're doing? Then how do you plan on doing that? And then what are you doing? And the example he gives is Apple, where he says, Apple could have very easily said, we're selling iPods so that, or we're selling the idea, or selling iPods so that you can like listen to music. How we're doing it? We're doing this, and this, and here's why we're doing it. And like the way that he explains it, like the why is a pretty why. It's like very bland, very boring. And I see that all the time with businesses that we work with. Whoa, why does somebody want a kitchen? Well, they don't like the colors of the walls. Okay, well, talking about that, like what's bad about that? Oh, it's just outdated. It's like, well, then how are you like? What does that do for people? Like you need to like dig deep, because if you can get to the why of stuff and you sell on the why, that's selling on emotion versus just selling a product. And it's like people want to buy from other people that have a why. I'll talk to people. I'm like, why do you like, running this business? Oh, I make a lot of money. I'm like, is that really it? Like, if that's the only reason why, then like we're gonna have to lie and make something up, because like imagine putting on your on your About Us page of like, here's who I am and I love doing this because I can make a lot of money, and it's just like, come on. So like, and everybody actually has a why deep down, like, and a lot of times most people like people that we do websites for, I would say 50% have never thought about that. Where I'm like, what made you? And we'll like start off with like, why'd you want to be an electrician? And then by the end of it, they're like, honestly, like growing up, like I loved tinkering with like electronics, and it was just like the thrill of like taking something and, you know, turning it, like taking nothing, turning it into something. And now like I just get to do that every single day.
Yeah.
So it's cool to kind of see the transition, but like most people don't ever think about this. And that's the idea of this first book, is to first off, figure out your why, both in business, so you can actually properly establish why you're doing what you're doing to clients, which will in turn get them to want to hire you, but also why, like, it's like, why are you doing what you're doing with life? Like, you know, everybody's going to die.
Yeah.
Like, that's not
only 2 things are guaranteed in life: death and taxes.
Yeah,
so.
and yeah, I mean, although if you're like a Fortune 500 company, like taxes are not there.
Yeah, so just death.
It's mainly just death. So it's one of those. So it's like, you know that you're going to die. So if you like live this unfulfilled life where you look back and you're like, man, I really nailed 80% of life, it's like, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
So like why not, you know, why not push more? But the sooner that you can figure out the whole why of what you're doing, like everybody goes, oh, like I wonder why I was put on this earth. And it's like, I'm hoping this book takes us down that journey to understand what is our end goal, because without having an end goal, without having an end place, how do we know what to do in between now and the end?
It's like when someone says, what do you want to do? Make a lot of money. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's how like that's not really a tangible goal right now. I mean, yeah, but put like a number to it, put like a path to it.
Well, that's why we always do like set metrics. Like today we talked in our we always do a morning huddle. And today was, what is one thing you want to accomplish in 2020? It's got to be tangible.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I want to feel better about this, this, and this. It's like, great. Give me something. Yeah, give me something, because like it's got to be black and white.
It also helps you like get to that, I think, a lot better. Like definitely since I started working here, I've really realized more tangible goals actually help me achieve those goals, and not just a in the air floating. Yeah, we'll get this done. I mean,
that's I hate my not hate, but I severely loathe when people have goals and then they have stretch goals. I'm like, why? Like, what? Just make one goal.
Yeah.
Like what the hell is this? Like, if you hit your first goal, then that's fine. Then remake a goal, but like, don't make like a here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm really happy with, because then all you're really gonna do is you're gonna fight for the good, versus like, because if you have like a tier 1 and tier 2. You're only going to be fighting for like that lower bottom one.
Would tier 2 be a failure if you didn't reach that, but you reached tier 1? I mean, that's confusing to me.
Just make one, make it happen, and I'm hoping that this book kind of like sets us on the path for that. So kind of wrap it all up. CGN Badass Book Club. It's on Facebook at this time. You have between now and February 1 to read Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And on February 1, we're going to put out a Facebook post. It's set. And make sure you guys join the Facebook group. All right, we're going to let you in. Between February 1 and February 5, you have to comment, yes, I have read this book. If you have not read the book or you do not comment, we're going to kick you out. All right, and at that time, for the next month, we're going to be discussing the book, going all through it, talking about everybody's why, the whys in business. Here's how you position your whys, things like that, so you can actually like properly communicate with prospects what's going on. And then for the month of February, we're going to announce the next book. Hey guys, it's February 1. Hope everybody had a great month. Here's the next book that we're reading next month. And then we're also going to recap the whole Start With Why on this podcast. So effectively, we're going to be living, quote unquote, Start With Why for the next 30 days.
Yeah. It should be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Like this should be a good one. So, you know, I'm pumped for this. Like I mean, I read a lot. I think a lot of people like read a lot, and they just like don't realize how much you're actually taking in, and then to actually like take that in, taking the 10% that you always take in, and then actually discuss it. I think that'll take you from like only retaining 10% to like actually opening your brain up to like another 50% on top of that, where it's just like, because you can actually talk about everything and like digest it and discuss it. I think that'll really like get you like the path that you want to go.
Yeah, and you might not like every book, but I guarantee you can take something out of every book.
Exactly. So and we'll make sure on if you're listening to this podcast, we'll put the Facebook group in the show notes. If you're on YouTube, after you've already hit the like button, go ahead and we'll put the group below. And if you like this kind of stuff, I mean, you think this is cool, just drop us a comment and say book club and give us a thumbs up.
Maybe got any suggestions of books we should maybe read in future
Yeah,
months?
I mean, yeah. So like, I think that's like, I'd like to do that, where it's like, because there's like a handful of them where they're like, you know, I see them over and over and over. And even if you've read this book before, you have to still read it. That's a good point to bring up. You have to still read it again, because like there's a lot of books that like you read it once and then you're like, yep, I read that 5 years ago, or shit, I read that last month. But when you reread it or re-listen to it, you pick up different things.
Yeah.
So you have to have read that book in the previous month. Even if you read this book 10 times, you've already read Start With Why 10 times, you have to read it one more time during our set time frame to make this happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're out. If you say, oh, back in my heyday, I read it, nope, you're out.
Yeah. No.
So you have to do it during this time period, and you stay in.
Cool. I like it.
Easy enough?
Yeah, it should be.
All right, guys. Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Go on Facebook, look it up, and you'll be good to go.
Cool.
Cool. Thanks, guys.